say thank you, Ashe, so my ancestors can hear me. Good manners when I'm asking them to heal me. Life is like a clusterfuck of hornets, do you feel me? But sometimes time slows down and you can see the wings beating.
Blessings, fellow weird and wild ones. My name is Goddess, aka G, aka your friendly neighborhood witch. I'm a cinephile, kinkster, brat, and queen switch. Thank you for joining me on our way back to wholeness. This is our temple, our playground, our life, and our truths. For season 3, I will be talking with the fam about sacred sex, the sensuality and healing, and practicing healthy love. This work is for the collective from me, Brenda, and Kay. And there's a lot of magic that goes on behind the scenes. Find ways to support and practice reciprocity for all the dope folks on the show at the links below. Grab your toys, your potions, and your lotions, and let's reclaim our pleasure.
Tin Tiny Talks is a global, non-traditional artist in residency based in Portland, Oregon, that focuses on the Black, Indigenous, trans, gender non-conforming, two-spirit, and queer creative diaspora. How does it work? Each year, 10 artists are selected as artists in residency both from Oregon and from across the United States and beyond. These artists will complete commissions which will be presented during the 10 Tiny Talks Festival based in Portland, Oregon. Go to cravetheater.org for more information. That's CraveTheatre.org.
Bandy Kiki is a Cameroonian entrepreneur and LGBT plus activist. She is the founder of Kikum Consulting, a marketing and branding consultancy, Rainbow Migration Trustee, Black Beetle Health Trustee, and Living Free UK Director. Thank you so much for being on season 3 of the podcast, Bandy Kiki, excuse me.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's such an honor. So how we start each episode is we just, again, share our pronouns and then the race or ethnicity in which we embody. And then we go into a check-in question to see how we're entering into the space. So I can go first. My name is Goddess. My pronouns are he, she, they, and I am Black-bodied. How about you, Kiki?
My name is Bandy Kiki. My pronouns are her, she, and I am Black-bodied.
Black-bodied. Well, what? And the check-in question today is, in this moment, where do you feel pleasure in your body? And where do you hope it is at the end of our time together?
Well, pleasure. Did you mean pleasure?
Yes.
Well, I've never been asked this before, by the way. So I guess I feel pleasure in my mind because I'm sort of like ready to talk, isn't it? So I like, I'm very into thinking about things and, stuff like that. It excites me in a way. It gives me pleasure. But since I haven't eaten all day, and I am doing IVF at the moment, so my eating window is now. So I hope by the end of this, I'm going to have something to eat.
Oh yeah! Do you want to get something now? You can totally eat.
Oh no! Believe me, when I've been this hungry, I tend to eat a lot.
Oh, hey, you know what? It'll be like ASMR, for everyone on the show. They'll just. I have a friend who loves to watch people like eat, like the sounds for her are pleasant. So she would be on that in a second.
Well, I guess so. We could do that. Maybe another episode then.
Yeah. Just Kiki eating.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. Yeah. I really love feeling into the body. It's part of my practice. So that's why I start the podcast with questions like that. For me right now, my pleasure is actually this whole channel running up and down my body. I like woke up and there was like a squirrel outside my window, and just, I don't know, it's a beautiful day. So I just feel it radiating today.
You look really happy and you sound really happy, to be honest. Like you sound super happy. At peace.
Thank you.
Way, you know?
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. Thank you. I'm glad that shows outward today.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so I guess I should start with this. So I found you while trying to make sense of a relationship that I was moving through, and your videos are just, okay. So they're very like, they always have like a number in them, like 5 things to like recognize or 10 things to do. And so it was really step by step, which part of my mind really appreciates. And the videos are on how to navigate queer relationships.
Yeah.
They're really straightforward. You're really straightforward. And so I really appreciated that. And it reminded me that, at least in my life, I can get really lost in the sauce of like the energetics of it, the feelings of it. And there's certain basic things about what we need in a relationship that need to be the anchor points.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of things that we tend to overlook when we're in a relationship. And sometimes it depends on our personality or past experiences, you see. So just listening to somebody say these basic things can really go a long way for people in that situation.
It does. It really does. So that's, I just want to say thank you for those videos. I'm going to put a link in the show notes so that people can go find those videos. So the first question is, how has embracing your queerness strengthened or weakened your Cameroonian African Black pride?
Well, embracing my queerness, by the way, I would just like to say that the thoughts expressed during this podcast are all mine and do not represent any organization or individual that I work with. So back to the question, the embracing my queerness, did a lot of wonders for me mentally. It freed me. It made me, it helped me find, because being open helped me find other people that they were like me. However, being open has also then brought things like other Cameroonians saying, I'm not Cameroonian enough because I'm queer. Or people from my tribe, I'm from the tribe called Nso, which is northwest region of Cameroon, saying that you are no longer one of us because you're queer, and we don't know this. We don't see this within the tribe, you see. So I still feel proud as a Cameroonian. I still feel I am 100%. So I feel like that's my birthright. Anyways, you can't take it away from me. But there are people who feel like I shouldn't identify as a Cameroonian, or I shouldn't identify as someone from SOT because of my sexuality, unfortunately.
Thank you for going into more detail with that answer. I think that it's important to kind of, because like in the queer community that I'm coming from, I should say like Black queerness, family is so important to us.
Yes.
And we get that from how it was when we did live in Africa.
Yes.
So when we lose our family due to something that is so inherent to our nature, that like there's a tearing there that happens. At least in my heart, there was like such a deep tearing, and it I came to my queerness later on in life, and so there actually had to be like a lot of restructuring of what it meant to be Black for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel you there.
Yeah. I mean, it was the same thing for me as well. It was like everything, got blown away, and I had to restructure it. I had to structure my relationships with families, with friends, what to talk about, what not to talk about, what conversations to engage in, because sometimes we were like, when are you going to find a husband and stop this nonsense there? This lesbian nonsense. So you have to then consider those things. There's also celebrating friends publicly. I then became a bit aware of the fact that sometimes just simply posting somebody back and saying happy birthday, dear, you've been a good friend, would then mean that people would start suspecting them of being part of the LGBTQ community and might treat them bad. So there were so many moving parts that I had to restructure after I came out, too many parts, to be honest.
There's too many parts. You shouldn't have to do that. I never even thought about that, of like the assumption that other people are gay just by being. This is starting to make sense why some friends like.
Don't post me, please. Don't post me. Yes.
Okay. Oh, what a tangled web we are as human beings. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we talked about your videos before, but in one of your videos, you talk about not experiencing being Black until you moved to the UK. Are there commonalities between your experiences of being queer in Cameroon with your experiences of being Black in the UK?
About that, Cameroon is majority Black, isn't it? We're all Black there. I've never heard somebody whilst in Cameroon describing me as that Black lady, you see, because everybody is Black, and it would make no sense to say that Black girl or that Black lady. I didn't think about race because I lived in amongst people who looked like me. You see, I didn't have to think about race at that time as well. But when I moved to the UK, everything changed. Around my skin color, the politics around my skin color, the hate towards my skin color, the assumptions, stereotypes, So it took me a while to adjust to this line of thinking, by the way. And I didn't understand it until other Africans helped me understand it. I didn't understand why I went to Primark. At the time I was a student. I went to Primark and the security guard was following me around. I didn't understand why I went to the park with friends because one of them, I think was a niece, had a birthday as well. So we were out in the park celebrating and just having fun. And the lady was shouting, "Go back to Africa." And I'm thinking, I came here as an international student. I'm spending money in this country. Why are you asking me to go back to Africa? She said, I didn't understand all these things. It took me a while to adjust and then see them from another point of view. One of the things that I would like to point out is the way Black Americans like yourself see race and racism is different from the way we see it. I don't know how a lot of your listeners would take this, but there's a lot of things that you guys consider cultural misappropriation, I think, isn't it?
It depends on what you're talking about. I continue talking.
Yeah. So that wouldn't necessarily offend me, you understand? But I would probably feel more offended if somebody says something bad about Africa. Does it make sense?
Okay. So are you talking about like when white people use African American vernacular?
Yes, things like that. I wouldn't be quick to pick it up like you guys do. But yes. So it took me a while. To then adjust mentally to what is accepted and what is not accepted. The hair touching thing, I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't even know what it meant. If an English person met me back home and said, "Oh, I like your hair, can I touch it?" I would let them touch it. Mentally, I didn't connect that to a much more bigger picture, if that makes sense. So yeah. So comparing my being queer and blackness in the UK, I guess in the UK, in back home, I wasn't openly queer. I was in the closet. My relationships were very private. Like, it was on a need to know basis. You can only also know other LGBTQ people if you're part of the community, and I wasn't that immersed in the community at the time as well. I mean, there's a lot of violence around being queer in Cameroon. I think some of you might know that listening. So I wasn't as open. However, in the UK, the racism that I felt, I think that was the question, isn't it? Comparing my blackness and queerness in Cameroon to...
Well, yeah, are there any like overlaps in just having to, because in my experience, just two worlds, like not being fully Black or not being fully queer, they have to be separated. And when you throw, it's just, it's complex.
Okay. So yeah, whilst in the UK anyways, when I came out, or when I started moving towards the LGBT plus community, looking for my tribe, I experienced racism. So I think I mentioned in that video that I was a bit shocked that people who have experienced marginalization would marginalize others. You know, I was also thrown back by how some English people treat foreigners. Now, if you came to my country or you came to my household and you were a foreigner, would give you the best bed, the best everything. I didn't know that before I came to the UK. I assumed that, just because I'm a foreigner here, people were willing to help, show me places, you know what I mean? Like, because of that communal upbringing that I had, I didn't know about the UK being individualistic and all these thoughts about Black people coming in and taking their jobs or things like that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's you bring up a really good, like a couple really good points. So starting with like the way that people who are not from our country are viewed, like I think that that's very much a part of whiteness, of like this like fear or like you want to separate them. Whereas in other countries, and not all countries, but in some other countries, like you're welcomed. Like we want to make you feel as if you belong here because you might be a blessing. My auntie would say, like, you never know when you're entertaining an angel. So yeah, so that is like a huge difference. And then when it comes to like the cultural part of like being Black and like being raised in a Western society, I think that that's something that I need to keep digging into and like looking within myself, because we are not a silo. Like Black people, like, yes, I celebrate the Black diaspora. It's beautiful. But in that Black diaspora, there are so many ways in which we experience life. So what's going to offend one person might not another. Yeah. So this is definitely not meant to be like a silo thing. Like white people can't take this and be like, oh, this is how I should act toward all Black people or all Black queer people. It's so nuanced. And so I really appreciate you bringing that up. Thank you for that. Yeah. So going back to being from Cameroon and your experiences there, where do you think anti-queerness comes from within the continent of Africa?
I mean, colonization, it's the pre-colonial Africans experience sexual diversity. Queerness was some sort of a ritual in some communities. In some communities, for example, Uganda, where you had a queer or bisexual king, in some traditions, women were allowed to marry other women. Female usually had female husbands in some traditions, like the Igbo tribe in Nigeria. in the Dagaba tribe of modern day Ghana, you had gender was based on energy as opposed to anatomy. You understand? So, and then colonization came with very rigid gender binaries, telling Africans what to do and how to see themselves, erasing people who didn't fit into these Western rigid genders. You understand? So colonization has done a lot of things for Africa. It has done a lot of bad things for Africa. I remember one of those videos as well, where I mentioned that when I came to the UK and I was part of the queer community where I experienced racism, and within the Black community where I experienced homophobia, it left me feeling like maybe I don't belong to any of this, or maybe I have conflicting identities. It's only after I started learning the queer African history that I realized that was a continuation of my ancestors, as opposed to being something foreign, which really helped me a lot mentally. So yes, some of the anti laws across Africa is a hangover from colonization. Again, I mentioned that Uganda had a queer king. However, in Uganda now, they have one of the toughest laws against the LGBT community in Africa. So you can see how, colonization ruined us in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for giving all of those examples. I feel that dissonance too of like, in a lot of, I would say my experiences with folks in the US who are trying to get back to their African roots, trying to reclaim pride in their culture, pre and post colonization and being stolen. There is a lot of talk and centering of like Black kings and Black queens. And it's very rigid in that mindset. And there's also still talk around queerness being a way of a tool of white people to take away our power and to separate the Black household, to demasculinize Black men. And it's kind of a mind fuck, honestly, because after doing the research, you're like, no, we were queer people.
Yeah, but I see where that is coming from. I see where that conversation is coming from. I think I recently learned about the sexual violence against slaves, isn't it?
Yes.
Where men were raped in front of their families. So I see how that can be then changed. The narrative can be changed. You see. But again, I recently had a conversation as part of an event, because in the UK, October is the Black History Month, as opposed to February, I think, in the US. Yeah. Yeah. So I recently had a conversation where one of the audience members was talking about, no, this has not been part of us, it's been imported. And I was like, no, what was imported to Africa is homophobia. Homosexuality has always been part of us. We have always lived amongst, everyone else without any issues. However, when colonialists and the missionaries came, things changed. Just again to mention, to anybody who wants to do some research, the queer king that I mentioned from Uganda is King Mwanga of the Dagaba tribe. So anybody who wants to look it up can look it up. You can also check Queen Nzinga. There's a lot about her. She had a harem of women and men, and she also had men dress up as women. The
way you say that,
it's that's how we have been. You have I think I can't remember the tribe actually, but the Langi men in the Langi tribe, that's post pre-colonial men in the Langi tribe, were socially accepted as women. They could do duties or chores that were often assigned to women, and they could marry men as well, and they were very much free in society. So this conversation, I do understand the sexual violence against our people, which happened during slave trade, but we can't erase this history of our people, this queer history, based on that alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that what it kind of comes down to, like, I see the pattern of, like, there's just been so much harm done to the spiritual and physical body of Black people across the diaspora. And so reclaiming, like, we need to, and other people, white people, need to do the work of, like, really sifting through that and what it means. Like, where did the tearing happen? And how are the ways in which we're reclaiming our Blackness possibly still, there's residue? You said something about a hangover, like a hangover of color. And I was like, yes, that part, like that. How is that hangover still playing out? Yeah.
Yeah, the laws, the violence, the current violence, the laws, because most of the laws were put in place by Britain, and then they're being upheld by the current government for whatever reason. So yeah, it's a hangover from the past.
That's such a good way of putting that. I'm gonna put that in my thought bank. Yeah. So what are some ways you can navigate being LGBTQIA+ in a country with anti-queer laws?
Well, in Cameroon, I tell this story all the time. When I was in Cameroon, I didn't outrightly ask a girl out. I'll just do nice things for her until she realizes that maybe, there's some, there's more to this. I'm not just being a friend. I want to, tap some ass. You can use that some language here. But yeah, so that's what I did. One of the things I have to say as well is there are a lot of communities online now. You can come online. If you follow somebody like me, for example, you would see who is queer friendly and who is not queer friendly through my comment section. But I have to warn you, some of them are just creating it's just like a trap, so that when you come to them, they would out you. So you need to be really careful who you go to. A lot of activities in Cameroon are very much on the ground. You have to know somebody to introduce you to where you can be safe and where you can feel seen and celebrated. I would say there's a lot of blackmailing as well going on, sometimes by community members. If you're currently experiencing that, you can also reach out. You can reach out to community leaders like myself and other people as well, because we have a way of dealing with that sort of issue, since we can't go to the police and things are just a bit weird, you know what I mean? Difficult to handle. But yeah, I think that's the only thing that I can think of at the moment. But yeah.
There's a couple of things that came to mind when you were speaking. Like, one, like, how many, like, steps you have to go through in order to, like, express your, like, love for someone, and also, like, find community. Like, it's confusing. Like, even, like, here, I grew up in the Midwest. Like, it gets really confusing when you like someone and you can't just, like, tell them. You don't feel safe enough to tell them. And then it's confusing for them because they're like, well, I thought, because I've definitely had women who I'm like, no, I actually like you. And they're like, oh, I thought this was just how you were, like, wanting to be friends. And no. I've changed. I've now switched up how I do things, so it's a lot more clear. But just in having to do that, it really does kind of, for me, it makes me, like, really confused with, like, signals from people. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. And I feel sometimes hesitant in asking because I don't want to like put people in an awkward situation. And so, like, as you're talking, I'm like, yes, I know. I know what you mean.
Yeah. Sometimes, for safety reasons, I tell a lot of people who follow me is to start up a conversation around LGBTQ issues. You know, if they're very homophobic, then they might not be the best person to ask out if you wanted to outrightly ask them out. However, I've also learned in the past that sometimes people want to be homophobic publicly because they're masking something inside. I mean, there's a lot they want to take attention from who they are, whilst in the closet. But yeah, it's to be honest, it's a very difficult thing to navigate, especially in a place where it's people are homophobic. But I guess in the UK, if I was in the closet, I'll probably just ask them, "How's your boyfriend?" or "How's your girlfriend?" And yes, whatever they say, then I would know. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think here it might be confusing because, like, especially depending on the age range, because some people call their friends their girlfriends, and this gets me now, like when I'm talking to my mom or to like older people, they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go out with my girlfriend," and I'm like, "Wait, you're gay?" And then I have to remind myself I'm Black in the US. That means something different.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I love that suggestion of like asking about their viewpoints on LGBTQ folk, like their political viewpoints, or like bringing that up in conversation in a way that kind of like removes you from being the centerpiece of that conversation. I think that's a wonderful, like wonderful suggestion. And asking about like their relationships too. It gives you a little tidbit into if they're single or not, which is helpful. Yeah, okay. I dig that. And I was going to move on to the next question, but I'm still thinking about like, just like what you've said so far and still like kind of like taking it in. And I'm really, I'm always humbled talking to Black folks who are not from the US because it just continuously reminds me that like my experience is not the only Black experience.
Yes. And I would like to really thank you for mentioning that, because I have been around people who are not from Africa, and the line of thinking, it's like they're almost wanting me to think like them. You understand? I should be offended by this. I should be. And I'm like, we don't have the same experiences, And the way I see myself is, even though we might share the same skin color and a lot of things, to be honest, that have been passed down, there's some things that, unfortunately, we can't think about them the same, unfortunately. Or there's certain experiences that have shaped you and I that are not exactly the same. So, of course, it would affect the way I think about or see other things, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, maybe that's a good lead into something a little bit more lighthearted. Just dating other Black folks who might be from a different country than you or different continent. So what are some funny differences you've experienced dating Black women raised in Western countries versus Cameroonian women?
Let me see. There are a lot of differences. First of all, I like my food, so the food thing might be a bit different. Our level of spice, might be a bit different, but the food is almost similar. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
What?
Because I'm like, all these things I love, but then I forget you're in the UK. You're dating different.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think we're culturally, when I date a woman who is Black but not Cameroonian, we have some cultural differences. For example, I was flirting with a girl once who was raised here in the UK, and the only thing we had in common is that we had the same skin color. She reasoned and thought about things like an English person. So we didn't really have much in common, even though we're two Black women. Also, one of the things that have become very clear to me is the way people think here in the UK, women think in the UK, they're very individualistic as opposed to the communal style that I'm used to, isn't it? For example, now, I used to date a girl and something happened back home and I said I had to contribute money and things like that. And she was like, why? And I'm like, well, that's what you do. If somebody passed away, they might not be my immediate, nuclear family, like my brother, sister, or, but it might be a cousin of a cousin. And I would have to still contribute because that's what we do. We're a community. We come together and we do these things. But that person is thinking like, oh, that's not your business. That shouldn't be your responsibility. You shouldn't be doing that. You understand? So that was a really a big difference as well for me. And which then meant that if somebody like a cousin or a second cousin or a third cousin passed and I was, or something happened and I was worried about it, they would not understand why I am worried about it or why I'm so emotional about it. You understand? Which meant I didn't get the support I needed through that period as well. The other thing is, I guess, is conversations around money, I don't know if it's just the women have been around or that's how every other person thinks. For example, now, if I was seeing a girl and she wasn't working, I would support her because that's what you do. You support people around you, you support family, support friends, you understand? That's what we do. Again, the communal upbringing. But then I realized in the UK that there's certain expectations. Like, for example, there's a joke that we always make within the African community that a lot of white people have money to go on holidays and do all these extra activities because their money is their money. They don't have to spend it on a cousin, give their younger sisters and stuff like that. And I think Black Americans, you guys have the same experience as well, where we have to contribute towards a household or things like that, isn't it? So yeah, so I think again that's a huge difference that I experienced. What are some of the experiences again? The cultural shock. Some of the cultural shocks. Like for example, now I was with a girl who didn't talk to the mom, which to be honest is not a bad thing because apparently the mom was toxic. You understand? But culturally, you would still be expected to speak to your parents. They see your parents. You might how you navigate the relationship might change, but they're still your parents. You understand? You again, we think about life as a collective as opposed to me. I'm not talking to this person. I'm not doing that. We are not doing that. So and again, it also then by the way, I want to bring this up. I want to really bring this up as well. So, for example, now, I have, based on individualistic society and a communal upbringing that I have met people who didn't understand why I can't just cut homophobic family members off. You understand? Because to them, they're used to being individuals. But to me, that has always been part of my network. It's like cutting my arms off, isn't it? You understand? So it takes a while. So sometimes I see a lot of activists saying, oh yeah, just cut them off. It doesn't work like that. We think as a community. We breed as a community. We celebrate as a community. So imagine having to just give that up immediately. It's not possible, isn't it? So yeah.
There is yes. Yeah, you mentioned that it's similar in African American community. I would say that like now it's definitely moving away from that, and I think it's something that is helping and harming our community in different ways. But that is so important what you're saying about individualistic mindset versus communal. Like there's such a there's something about that is like so integral to what keeps like communities going. and I'm still like trying to find the ways of like finding a happy medium between like healthy boundaries with a lot of family members who are toxic and like
I think
communal mindset.
Yeah, I think it's essential to find a balance. But asking somebody who is used to that sort of upbringing to just cut people off is not the best solution, because it can cause more harm to them mentally than anything else. You understand? So finding a balance is best, and also doing it gently. You can't just uproot somebody who is used to all these things and then want them to be individualistic. The loneliness of it all would probably kill them.
You know? Yeah. Absolutely. Like you said, it's like cutting off your hands. Like you can't just do that. And this can go into like the next question of like how you can support, you know, a partner who might be from a different culture than you in navigating their queerness and their like relationship with their family. But what I have learned from my experiences is that like it's not about, for me, like completely cutting people off. Like I've done that in my life, and what I've actually learned from dating someone who was Black but from a different country is that I do have capacity and the ability to incorporate my family into my life in ways that really honor that the family bond that I think is different than how I would say like white mental health mainstream Western culture thinks about boundaries. So. But what's hard for me is like, how do you, as a partner, support your partner who might have different cultural viewpoints in like creating a family that reflects something different while also being a part of their family? I think we all have to navigate dealing with each other's families. So what has been your experience? Like, how do you find happy mediums, and how do you support your partners who might come from other cultures?
I think the first thing is noting the differences that you all have. You know, is also understanding that some of these things are important to them, because there's a difference between something happening differently in the other tribe and it being important to your partner. If your partner says that's important to them, it's important to them. If it's important for them to stay in touch with their family, even though the family might be homophobic, then it's important to them. You understand? I think one of the things that I have tried to do in the past is to find a common ground as well, whilst noting the differences. Maybe food is a big icebreaker, isn't it? Maybe I try out things from their own culture and find something that I actually like, so we can share that thing in common. And then I can also introduce her to things from my own culture, like food. And she might decide if she'll decide whatever one she prefers. Also, just trying to learn, for example, if they speak another language, for example, my first language is Lamso, learning how to say thank you, which is Beruo, in her language, in her local language, goes a long way. You understand? It actually shows that you're interested. You're not trying to erase them, for whatever reason. Because some people feel erased in relationships. You understand? Yes. One of the things that I did, because I used to date a Scottish girl a very long time ago. I don't know if you appreciate me dropping that during this podcast, but that's my truth, I guess. Yes. One of the things that I did was to visit where she's from. You know, and it gave me a clearer picture of who she is as a person and why certain things, thought processes might be the way they are, you see. So if you can visit, if you're dating a girl from Cameroon, Nigeria, if you can visit Cameroon or Nigeria, then by all means do visit Cameroon and Nigeria. when starting a family, I would say try to bring in from both ends, because you can't, if you just bring out your own culture and ignores the other person's culture, they'll feel like the power dynamics changes in the relationship. They'll feel like they're not being represented in that relationship. So bring in things from both cultures that you all like. You see, for example, now Christmas is celebrated in Africa a bit differently. We have in Cameroon, for example, we have something that's called chin chin. We do popcorn and stuff like that. So if I was dating a girl from maybe another culture, we can have the round table stuff, but on that table we can also have things from my culture that I like, or that are part of my Christmas celebrations on that table. So I can feel represented on that table as well. So yeah, to be honest, it's try to engage, try to understand why they think this way. And again, like I mentioned, like maybe a cousin might die, or a second cousin or third cousin, and they're sending money back home. And then you're asking, why are you sending money back home? Why are you doing this? You have to understand that fundamentally it's the communal upbringing that they have that is making them behave that way. So when you understand that, you understand other things. And then you also have to understand that you have to support them through that. You know, maybe it's financially or emotionally. You have to. For example, in Cameroon, if somebody passed and let's say you're my girlfriend, for example, we would have to contribute as a household. You know, you and I have a household now, so we'd have to say, probably, if we're using my surname, it would be the Banadums. This is from the Banadums. You understand? So you do get contributions like that, or you do get gifts sent out, or maybe like food or a courtesy visit from you and I, or from one person representing the household. You understand? So that's what we do. So you have to support that person through that emotional process. When you don't, that person can feel like, maybe this is a bit too much. You know, and when you don't as well, sometimes they feel like they can't talk to you about these things, about these feelings, because you then start asking them, but is it cousin? Is it this? Is it that? You know? Yeah.
Thank you for that. So first thing, have you ever made any like fusion dishes? Like, yeah. How'd they turn out?
Really good. I do them all the time. Really good, actually. Really good. I think this is something that I found in the UK called the chili con carne, something like that. I make it a bit differently. I add more spices in. I eat it with things that the public wouldn't think about. Like, for example, they eat it in the UK with rice. I eat sometimes with plantain. So, yeah.
Do you do like fried plantain?
Yes, fried plantain, boiled plantain, plantain porridge, that's what it's called. I do it. I love my food, by the way.
Me too. I feel you. I have not tried boiled like plantain or like plantain porridge. I'm gonna have to try that. Okay, now I'm just thinking about food. Let me go back to what I was going to say. Oh, yes. Okay, so when you were talking about like being really supportive of your partner and their relationship with their family, and just really trying to understand like their culture and seeing them as a full person, and not just trying to assume that they feel the same way as you. I think that that's so important for any relationship. And I think to add to that, I find that as someone who's Black and queer, who's still trying to like figure out their own like anti-queerness within, you have to first like understand what your boundaries are and what your desires are, and make sure that it aligns with your partner. But then also there has to be some sort of understanding of what your capacity is to allow your partner and yourself to experience that shit. Like, you're going to see and hear your partner do some things that you're just like, man, that really hurts.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm also a firm believer that if your partner's boundaries don't match your boundaries, there's no need being together, you know? So because people come together and then they're not compatible and they start having these expectations, you see? So if they don't match, you don't have to be together. You can find your separate ways and stuff like that. If there are things that you can live with, you can sacrifice, then that's okay. You understand? Because, it's one thing. For example, now, I wouldn't say that I met an English person who's been through some terrible things with their family. You understand? And then and then on the other hand, hypothetically, my family doesn't accept me as a queer person. Then I constantly go back to them, which my English partner would find a bit harmful. And my English partner is like, because you're dealing with this, I have to deal with it as well. Can you not just cut them off? Personally, I can't just cut them off. Do you understand? Owing to my, you understand? I might do it in a slower pace as expected by the English partner. Do you understand? So she doesn't have to be with me because that's a trigger for her. Seeing the way my family treats me will be a trigger for her. So she doesn't have to be with me. Again, sometimes you also meet people where when they are still at a very weird stage of their journey, you understand, or a very unique stage of their journey, where they're trying to withdraw from the family, draw boundaries, but they're not clear enough yet because they're still trying to figure it out. You understand? As the English person, maybe if I'm too far back in my journey as well, you can also just say that maybe this is not for me. But when I figured it out, we can try again. You understand? So, because sometimes when you say that, people have to accommodate others, they have to think about other cultures and try to see how they can come in and support. Sometimes people are not in a place where they can support you, and that's okay. So you don't have to be together,
Words of wisdom. Yes. Thank you for that. That was, like I said, just like clear, like the basics. That's what's up. Thank you, Kiki. So I'm gonna try to sneak in two more questions. Okay. So if you were to go back to Cameroon in 10 years, what would you hope to see?
The first thing I would go to is my mom's grave. She passed in 2017 whilst on the UK. So I've not seen the grave yet. So I've not said my goodbyes yet. The second thing that I would hope to see is to see queer people more visible and not afraid. So I want to be able to go into a gay bar and people are having fun and just being themselves. A lot of people listen to this that Cameroonians be like, it's not going to happen. But I'm hoping it happens in my lifetime, The other thing that I would like to see is to see people from SOT especially document their culture, for my tribe. I feel like a lot of stories that have been told about Africa and SOT is been written by foreigners who sometimes don't understand the depth and the source of that culture and what it means, you see. With that, I just wanted to throw this in as well to Black Americans who like to, go back to their roots as an African roots. Please, when you read a book, the writer of the book or the author of the book is essential. You can't just read any book, There's what you call the cultural iceberg. Sometimes the observer is writing from the level one. Level one is things that are very clear, like the food, the way people speak, the accent and things like that. The second level is a bit deeper, and you have to immerse yourself to be able to write something that is authentic, that is true as well. You understand? And then there's a third level as well, where where you're reading the books that you read, they have to be very careful. Again, like I said, So yeah, I would like to see some people document things, the recipes, our stories, maybe tell a story about, because I come from a tribe where the founder is a matriarch, Gonso, so a woman founded my tribe, which I'm very proud of, by the way. So I would like to see that documented. I don't want to, in the future, I don't want any second guessing. For example, like we're doing now with the pre-colonial queer history, because it wasn't documented per se. I also want to probably, which is something that I want to work on, is to tell these painful and violent queer stories, so that when things change, we never forget that this is how it was and this is how it is now. You understand? Because maybe in the future they'll start saying that, oh no, we're not homophobic. We're not. You were. You know? So I want to see a lot of that documented. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. May all those things happen. They're happening. You're already on the process of doing that with your YouTube channel. So again, links will be below. And with that, I think we'll go into like, what are you working on with your channel? How are you expanding? Where can we find you? All of that good stuff.
Well, I am Bandy Kiki on all social media platforms. You can find me on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. I am currently working on something that I don't want to really go into the details now, because I don't know when it will be completed yet. So I don't want to really talk about it. But yeah, with my YouTube channel, I'm planning on bringing people to tell their story. I want to tell queer African stories, because a lot of people have mentioned that when they come on YouTube, they see stories from Black people who are not necessarily African, and sometimes there are differences within those experiences. So they want to hear from a queer African. So I want to do more of that by bringing people to share their stories. Yeah, I'm sort of like trying to rebrand for next year. So a lot of things will be done a bit differently. Certain things will be addressed differently. I have somebody who's told me that I shouldn't waste time on trolls, social media trolls. But I feel like sometimes is an educative moment. You can use the opportunity to educate them. But I guess that a lot of that will change next year. What am I doing next year again? Or what am I doing new? Or
right after this, you're gonna get some food.
Oh,
I know it's not next year, but right after.
Yes. Yeah. Some food. To be honest, I'm super hungry now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap it up then. All the links will be below. You are doing some amazing, brave things that we shouldn't have to be brave for, but you out here and you're doing it. So thank you so much, Kiki, for again sharing your words of wisdom on this podcast, but then all the work you do. So yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. You have amazing energy. I love it. Very relaxed. You almost, because I tend to speak really fast, you're almost calming me down.
That's it, y'all. That's our show. Big thank you to Cloud Stokely for providing their song Lo-Fi Beats to contemplate YT supremacy on season 3. Your music is a whole vibe, fam. And thank you for your continued support, y'all. Keep pleasuring yourselves.
Tin Tiny Talks is a global, non-traditional artist in residency based in the Northwest, focusing on the Black, Indigenous, trans, gender non-conforming, two-spirit, and queer creatives. We'd like to congratulate our 2021 recipients: Belinda Rose, AC Ramirez de Arellano, Kareem Jackson, Cloud Stokely, Kalisto Nanan, D&D Productions, Nick Labonte, Zinnia Opio, Marla Darling, and Mixdalia de Lubel. You are the definition of excellence. Go to cravetheater.org to meet the artists.